Everything I've talked about so far is it's all, well, it's already there, but I'll post notes and reminders. Oh, by the way, I will post the works cited that I promised you. Look for it over the next few days, just as a starting place for you. Okay, so questions about the research paper. We know we got our MLA links here. I pointed them out to you last time. These two right here. And you have the Purdue. And this right here is something I borrowed from someplace, and then I modified it for our purposes. I know I got to stop that share. I'm going to show it to you. It's just an outline. So ideally, can you see the outline?
Yeah, we can see it.
Ideally, screen sharing has stopped. Why'd you do that? Oh, I closed the window. Dumbass, Richard. All right. Ideally, back to the ideally. Sometimes you'll have like lines. A teacher will assign this, and you'll have lines by each of these. So if I were editing, you know, you'd have a line here. Put your thesis statement or your working thesis statement, and then put your. They call this, the original said, first body paragraph, and they wanted it. They had on here strongest point. Well, there are multiple ways you can organize your material. And one of those ways is by emphasis, or it used to be called order of importance. So you put your biggest thing up front, or your biggest thing, your biggest point that you have to make at the end. So you lead up to it, or you start with it, and then everything else just kind of supports it. But I took that away because you can arrange things however you want, however they feel I don't want to say that, like organic, like this is how you want to say these things. When you sit down, before you do anything, I'm going to show you another reading that you can do, but I can't really show you. I mean, if you're reading it electronically, you should go, oh, I better have a title. I need to highlight that, right? So part of reading actively is highlighting or underlining or whatever it is that you like, so that you don't have to read the whole thing again. You come back to your major points. That would be on the midterm, if we were taking the midterm, all about active reading. One of the things is annotating, and that's the article that the reading that I'll show you. But annotation just simply means, writing off to the sides, and that's what teachers do, right? I write over here. I'm not reviewing, so it's not going to come out in a color, but it would if I were. This is a great point, right? That's annotation. So when you highlight or underline or whatever it is that you do, you should probably write little notes to yourself. At some point, organization in an essay is one of the biggest faults that students have, is that they don't organize. They think they can sit there and just, oh, my paper's doing 3 hours. And you know what it comes out like? A mess of disorganization, of jumbled ideas. So when you're taking those notes and annotation and underlining, then you come back to it and you make little things like, you don't have to be as messy as me, but put things in some kind of order that makes sense to you. If it makes sense to you, it's probably going to make sense to whoever your audience is, because that's the coherence aspect. One thing leads to the next. So just keep that in mind as you're reading or rereading or annotating. The other thing that is suggested, and since you only really need one other source, and you had quizzes on the other two, but if any amount of sources that you do, you should be able to sit down, a computer or on a notepad or whatever and summarize what you just read in 3 to 5 sentences or whatever. Tell yourself what that article said. It has nothing to do with quotables, what we call quotables, right? Things that you're going to actually quote inside your paper. It just means that you have a good sense of what that article's all about. These are all just like little mini steps at getting to this place right here where you can order them in an outline. Now, what that had, the original also had was like ABC. Well, that's a lot of points for each part, right? Three points for each part. Now, you might find that, I don't know, maybe you want to deal with, say, in one paragraph, you're going to deal with women or sexual diversity in media. And so that's part 1. And, you know, or part of the first part of part 1. And then in the second one, you're going to talk about racial diversity in the media. And then if you had a third one, and that's why I put if necessary, if you have a third thing you want to talk about, maybe, you know, nationalities. How are people from other countries dealt with in film? So that would be part 1. And then second part, if you were going to write about this, you might say women on TV. Racial diversity, wherever B is, racial diversity on TV. And if you had a third point, nationalities on TV. And then if you have a third body part, it's weird to say that, huh? You got a lot of body parts. If you have another thing to talk about, maybe you want to talk about social media or, you know, music and radio and things like that. So who's popular on the radio? Anybody know who Sam Hunt is? No. I don't really know who he is either, but I heard a song. He's got this weird, it's a country singer or artist, whatever. How about, oh, what's his name? Hootie and the Blowfish guy. I can't think of what his name is. That's not who I'm thinking of. Oh, well. Oh, what's his name? Not Sam Hunt. Well, anyway, he's a black country singer, and there aren't many of those. Hootie, can't remember his real name. Started out as a kind of a pop band, but now he is doing country. But he also got back together with Hootie and the Blowfish, so I don't really know. But this other guy, I thought it was Sam Hunt, but he's got a short name like that. And it's not often. And then every now and then we get a little Old Town Road, right? A little diversity and break, you know, kind of shake things up a little bit. So anyway, that's what I meant by music. Maybe you talk about that, like, you know, is there too much cultural appropriation, you know? Who's the biggest selling rap artist? I don't know this to be a fact. Maybe Eminem or whatever his real name is, Marshall Mathers. He goes by all kinds of names. But that's interesting. He's a skinny little white guy from Detroit, right? I think he's from Detroit. I don't know. 8 Mile. Is that Detroit? You all didn't see 8 Mile?
Yes, Detroit.
Anyway, so you all kind of get my yeah, you could, I mean, that's a simple way. I know it sounds formulaic, but it's a simple way to break down your ideas. Once you decide, okay, so maybe you want to write about the nursing field and diversity in the nursing field, as Nisiara, hope I'm saying it right, asked. Well, yeah, and then you could break it down to, like, you might have statistics that I know there are a lot more males these days. but there's probably still underrepresented. Um, and are there races and ethnicities or whatever? So that's how you might break that down. So anyway, that was a long-winded way of just saying, hey, you got this little outline thing that you can operate from. It's not a requirement to give it to me. It's just a helpful guide for you. Why am I seeing Dewan right in the middle of my screen? Are you talking? That's weird. Where's everybody else? They're up here. There we are. How we doing? Everybody's okay? Darius, you doing all right?
I'm fine.
Who's missing? There's 2 people missing. I don't know who it is. Can't remember now. I just want to remind you about induction and deduction. We're not really going into the Toolman business with the claim warrant and claim warrant. I'm forgetting it, but anyway, your thesis is basically your claim, but your thesis also can be the conclusion that you make in a deductive argument. So for your thesis, you may consider making it sound like a syllogism, which is the deduction, right? The 3 parts. Because women are 55% of our population, but only 12% of them ever get high ranking jobs in media. Something blah, blah, blah needs to be done, right? Everybody follow that? So you piecing together the kind of 3 parts. Women or anybody who's a high part of our population should have some kind of say-so and control. Women are a high part of our population, but underrepresented in the media or by the media. And then you make your conclusion that something needs to change, or we need to, put out more money or something, or whatever it is, change rules, protocols, whatever you want to do. So, any questions? Anybody that already passed step 1 on this? Hopscotching to multiple steps?
I started thinking about what I was gonna write about, and I was thinking of doing like the view society has on women in social media specifically.
Okay. Yeah, I bet you can find some good articles about like, what do you call it? Like a harassment online, blank shaming, whatever it would be, body shaming kind of things on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, those kinds of things. But I'm not sure that's the angle you want to go, but I've heard about it, like taunting and bullying kind of things. Anybody else?
I thought about doing the same thing, but I was either gonna go to the Black women route or LGBTQ route because I saw a documentary on Netflix the other night and I thought it was really interesting about how they are perceived in LGBTQ, but at the same time, I'm not a part of that community, so I'm going back and forth on using that as my research paper subject.
Yeah, you bring up a good point that, do you have a right to engage in that discussion if you're not part of the community? I don't know, part of me would say, of course you do. You're part of the society that people, live in. Part of me wants to say, well, maybe you need to be kind of an insider to understand it. I don't know. Anybody know what the queer part is? I wanted to look it up. What is that? How is that defined?
So queer people look at them at relationship more as of they don't see gender and they it's more of a vibe thing. So if you vibe with them, then that's who you gonna vibe with. So whether it's a girl, a boy, whether they consider themselves bi or trans, it doesn't matter. If you got the vibe, then that's who you're gonna be with.
Gotcha. Because bi means you could go male or female, but as queer, like you could go transgender, you could go somebody.
Yeah, you can go,
Yeah, it's
you can go
a
either
wide
way.
range.
As long as you guys, as long as you like that person's personality and how they are, it doesn't really matter who, if they're transgender or bi, you love them because they're who they are.
Gotcha. And what black women in the media, is that what you said?
Yeah, that was another one I was going for as well.
Okay. That's probably a pretty good one. Lots of, examples of women, of black women who have kind of broken through that barrier, but they're so far, so few and far between. Um, did you all see Us?
Yeah, I saw it.
What did you think about the actress? The
She did an
main.
outstanding job. I love her. That's the first time I even like seeing. I wouldn't say that's the first time, but that's actually the first time I ever witnessed a black woman be that strong in a movie. Because I've always seen the ghetto ratchet reality TV black woman persona that I really hate. Because I know we're not like that at all. Well, not most of us that I know are not the reality TV black girl that everyone perceives us to be.
I agree. Well, I'm not a black woman, so it goes back to the question: can I make a statement about a group or an identity that I'm not one of? So half of me says, yeah, I can look at it from the outside, right, and say, hey, this is not right or fair, or it's two-dimensional or whatever. Dewan, what are you asking here? Did you already ask this?
Yeah, I already talked about it.
Oh, okay. Everybody else or anybody else? Everybody feel like even if you're not sure right now that you can lace up your boots and hike that hill or whatever. I don't know where to go with that metaphor. But Darius, you're good. You got any kind of ideas? Cool. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, and we could come back around in a minute, but is fragments and run-ons. They're the last, they round out the major errors. They're two sides of the same error. One, you have too much information happening between your capital letter and your period, and one, you don't have enough information happening between your capital letter and your period or your question mark. Or we don't like exclamation points. But, I like exclamation points. We just don't really like them in academic writing. So just give me 1 second here. So I'm going to give you some hints about the quiz. The way that I didn't write that quiz, but the way it's structured is you'd have like two examples, and I'm talking about the fragments one now. So when you get to that period, what you got to determine is there enough information following it or in front of it. The key is to look for your subject, which would be a noun or a pronoun that's going to do something, right? So if you have one of them was like, he decided he wanted to play football, period, and join the soccer team. Well, after the period, and we don't have a new subject. We don't have anybody doing it. We have to connect it to the previous, whoever he is, right? So That's a very common way to make fragments. There are about 3 common ways. They're afterthoughts usually. Most of the time you don't make a fragment up front, you make it as an afterthought, like you're still thinking, you're typing, you get to a period, but then you keep on going with a thought and you don't have all the right elements of a sentence. So if you start a sentence with and, but, so, those are the 3 main ones. If you start a sentence with those, that doesn't mean it's a fragment. It's okay nowadays to do that. It didn't used to be. The fanboys were only to connect 2 ideas with a comma, right? Comma and, comma but. Well, but now it's kind of okay to start a sentence with so and but. None of the other ones really. Maybe or. I'm not sure. It's probably not the best one, but. So if you have a sentence that starts with so, let's say, or but, whatever, as long as you have a subject, somebody going to do something to whatever the verb is. So he left home, he left. Then it's a sentence. If you have so, left home, or so he, I know those don't make a whole lot of sense, but then you're missing an element. You need a subject, you need a verb, and it needs to be a completed idea. So all you have to do with those is just kind of slow down a little bit in your kind of proofreading or your revision. Just, kind of mentally stop at those just to make sure you have all the parts. The other ones that you can't start sentence, well, you can start a sentence with it. Because, since, whenever, if, although, while. Those are some pretty common ones. As long as you get to a comma and then you have a new subject and a new verb, then it's not going to be a fragment. But if you have because he likes her, period, that's a fragment because it doesn't finish the idea. So your sentence from your capital to your period at the end has to be a finished idea. Grammatically finished. That doesn't mean, because you might say, well, I don't know who he is. Well, that's not grammar, that's informational, right? So tell us Bob, whatever. The other way, so because and although, those are 2 big ones. But if you, I'm not gonna like it, period, if you don't come visit me, whatever. That's not a sentence, the second part. These are just cheats, sort of, that help you slow down. Begin a sentence with because, that's great. They call them complex sentences, right? If you remember from 8th grade or whenever it was, because you're mixing up your sentences. They're not just all straight, simple sentences, and you're combining ideas. The other way that you could make a fragment starts with who or which. Most of the time, you won't start a sentence with that unless you're making it a pointer, like that dog bit me or whatever. But who and which, a lot of times students will, or learners will put that at the beginning of a sentence. And if it doesn't have a question mark, it's a fragment. Everybody follow? That's just kind of a blanket rule. If you start a sentence with who or which, and it doesn't end in a question mark, it's a fragment. So if you wrote, I met a man downtown, period, who gave me $1. That's a fragment. It's a clause that's helping out the sentence. Those are your 3 main fragment creators. There are other things like ing fragments. They're kind of too hard to talk about in one session. But oftentimes if you begin a sentence with an ing word, like singing, dancing, running, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes it will be a fragment. So I enjoy showering alone, period. Singing my heart away. That's a fragment. The second part's a fragment. These make sense? Because all I'm doing is modifying, it's our fancy word for it, but all I'm doing is modifying my previous sentence. Okay, run-ons break down into 2 parts, comma splices and fused sentences. If you have a capital letter and a period someplace, and you got multiple pieces, a subject and a verb and a subject and a verb, and you don't have one of those connecting words like because, then you're going to have a fused sentence. If I gave you a fused sentence like, the dog bit me and I kept going, now I have a small h, he ran away, that would be a fused sentence. I got two sentences there and I didn't punctuate right between them. If I gave you that on an exercise and you fixed it, I said fix it, and you put a comma, it's the same error. Now it's called a comma splice. Everybody follow that? So this is all like about proofreading, really, like slowing down and looking at the pieces that are in your sentences. And their major errors. The other major error, the other minor error that is kind of up there is the pronoun antecedent, one that we talked about in the first grammar sort of lesson, module, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to I already set one of them. I can't remember which one, but I'm going to set both of the quizzes for a second attempt. So you can go try to nail it, get all the points, and then try to learn from it so that when I put similar kind of questions on the final, you'll ace that as well. So this is just a site that some site. I'll post this if you want to review it. These are sentences. All they're doing is telling you the same thing. You join them together without anything or with a comma. Same error, we just call it something different. Be careful because some teachers and students alike will refer to run-on sentences as sentences that just run on, like too damn long, right? That's not necessarily a bad or a good thing, as long as it's punctuated correctly. It's not a grammar problem. It could be a content or a cohesion problem. You're just babbling on and on. That's not what we really mean. So if it's, everybody, I hope you distinguish that. One, the run-on that we're talking about here, fused and comma splices, are, it's a grammar problem. Somebody tells you, oh, your sentences just run on. They just mean, hey, put a period somewhere and give me a breath. But remember, sentence variety is good. So everybody pay attention, and we'll look at some of these. If I can find it. Oh, let's preview it. We'll take it together. All right, so which contains a comma splice or a fused sentence? My family spends a lot of time at whatever beach, Timpson Beach. That's a sentence. It's your subject, that's your verb, it completed its idea. It is very easy. It is easy as my sentence. All the rest just helps it out. So we know that that right there is a comma splice. It joins two sentences, and we don't join sentences. There are multiple ways you could fix it. You could get rid of the it and put which is very easy to get from here, from where we live. Or you could just make it two sentences. This is a good example because this is the dependent word, remember, because Timpson is so accessible for us, that means that can't be by itself. So it has to join to something else. My family spends a lot of time there. So that doesn't contain a comma splice or fused sentence. So this is our answer, right? I don't think it's going to let me see the answers, but which is wrong. It never does. And so I'll just give you an example here. I don't know who got what wrong. I'm just giving you kind of guidance on them all. He had an amazing voice, but was terrible. So what we have here is two verbs. So we have a verb, that's our had, and was as our second verb. That's okay. We don't need a new subject because our subject here, he does both of them. Does that make sense? So that would not contain, it's not a run-on because it's just one sentence. Because he never corrected this flaw, meaning in the previous sentence, his music career never went very far. That's me too. I don't have an amazing voice, but I can never remember the lyrics to songs. I'm always going on. Just an old-fashioned song. All right, so I guess you can guess the answer there. So let's go back and look at the fragments. Which one contains a fragment? Well, I'm not even gonna look at the first one. I think it's okay. But here's another kind of helpful hint, you know, cheat. I call them cheats. They're not really cheats, but they're just a way to kind of, program your mind to spot things. If you start a sentence with not, 60% chance or so that you're going to have a fragment. You can have a sentence that starts with that. You could say, not only do I hate you, comma, I hope I'll never see you. That's a sentence, but it's rare. So it's almost always wanting to connect to something, right? It's an afterthought. So this has no subject, no verb, because this verb here goes to ways. So the actual subject is way over here, some events. History is complicated, it is a sentence. So they were trying to trip you up here and put it in between. Let's go randomly here. Many believe that Barack Obama is Muslim. He's not. Now you gotta be careful with these kinds because he's not, it's just a little bitty piece of something, right? And we know he's really means he is not. And even though it's only three words, it's a sentence. We got a subject, we got a verb, and we got the idea that finishes it. Actually, it's what we call an elided idea because it's really referencing the previous sentence. Because it would be awkward to say, many people believe that Barack Obama is Muslim. He's not a Muslim. That's, we don't need to repeat ourselves. Many people believe that Barack Obama is Muslim, but that's not true. And that's the one that I think it did trip up some of you because you might have thought that, oh, we don't start sentences with but whoever created this quiz is modern and they let it go, right? So let's see, let's go back. This is the one I gotta fix. Okay. How are we doing? Any questions? I know I danced around a lot of things today. You really only have one major thing to be concentrated on for our class. And I don't even think it's all that big a deal. Like I said, I'm going to create that works cited format page for you. You can just manipulate it with your own material. Questions? Zaria?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so since you didn't allow us to review it, and if we still do bad on that second attempt, is it still gonna not affect our grade, or are these, well, maybe I should start with, are these the run-on and the sentence fragments, the quizzes that you said the points aren't gonna count against you?
Yeah, but now hopefully you will get them all right, so they will count for you.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see. Remember, it's all about learning and getting better. It's not about penalizing. So do your best and I'll see. Did I answer you? Is that good? Is that right? Is anybody want to write about it? That sounds good. I'm not sure. I don't, you'd have to do some research. I'm not sure about it, but. Somebody wrote about something similar to that in a previous semester about, how better to have a great one-parent household than a crappy two-parent household, right? Two abusive parents, or one abusive and one not, or whatever. Rather have one good parent. I was suckered into watching some video on YouTube about a woman who adopted a baby, and she had fertility issues and she wasn't married, so she foster cared for children. Then she decided to adopt one. They called her up. It was a baby that had been abandoned by its mother, who was a drug abuser. So the baby had medical issues because the mother had used drugs during her pregnancy. And so this woman adopted this little boy and loved him to death. And, then 6 months later, they called her and said, we have another, or maybe a year later, we have another baby similar to the last one. Mother abandoned it and drug issues and all that. Turns out, I watched this 20-minute long video about a woman who adopted two separate babies there from the same hospital, who were both who were siblings. The mother was the same person. I don't know why I'm telling you. That sounds like a good parent, a good one parent there, one parent. I don't know, one parent household. Darius is good. Juan's good. Your day, you've been quiet. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm fine.
I have an idea of what I kind of want to write about. I think I want to talk about Black women on YouTube and just how they get promoted, I guess, and known, I guess. I don't know.
I got you. Like music videos and stuff, or just YouTube videos in general?
Just like regular YouTubers and kind of like a comparison of how two people can provide the same content, but they can reach different crowds.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I like it. You all like the Stallion, Megan?
That's my girl.
Yes, I do like Megan Thee Stallion.
I love her.
She's from Houston, right?
Show is I'm a true hottie, yeah.
Yeah, she from Houston.
Anybody else? Kiana, you doing all right? I fixed that quiz issue for everybody, right?
Yes, thank you.
Paige is not here, right? That's who's not here. That's one person not here. Well, are we good for today? Keep in touch. If you got questions, like I said, I'll post things. Don't be overwhelmed by all my postings. You can just pick and choose what you want to do. There are no assignments to do except for the redo on the grammar thing. If you want like a preliminary critique. I mean, I can't spend a whole lot of time on 11 4+ page papers, but I can look it over and give you kind of general advisories, especially if you want to send me like your works cited once you kind of got it put together and you want me to put a check mark on it before you turn it in. Everybody follow what I just said? And, just keep in touch. Who knows when the due date is? I want to say it's the.
I think it said the 4th. I think. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either, but just get to work on it. Cameron's the other one not here. What happened to Cameron? She came and she left. All right, well, thank you all for tolerating me. Sorry we went a little longer today, but next week, some vocabulary review, tidying everything up. Look for your essay ones to be graded. Don't freak out about grades and all that just yet, because once we get down toward the end, I have to go back into the grade book and rearrange things and make sure that all the points are aligning correctly. So if you don't turn in something, for example, I hope that's not the case, but if you don't do something, it won't count it against you until I put a 0. So if you had 100 on one item and you didn't do another item, it's giving you 100 because it's not counting that because you didn't do it. But once I put a 0, then you're going to have a 50 or whatever the percentage would be. I'm saying that they were weighted equally. Okay, well, have a good day. Have a good few days. Stay out of the heat. Wear your mask.
Bye.
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 Bye, Schmidt. Have a good one.
Daria? Oh. Kiana?